Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, just making sure.
I appreciate that. Everybody in? Would you please, I'm waiting to, Alderman Hughes isn't, and Benegus's picture aren't showing up yet on my screen. There's Alderman Benegus. There's Mr. Garrett. Oops. There. Oh, no. She coming? I'm sorry. Okay, while Alderman Hughes comes back in, we will begin because it's now 7:05. Apologize for the slight technical delay, but we are all together again. Please wave if you can hear me. You don't need to take yourself off mute. I'm seeing everybody. Thank you. Welcome everyone to the Board of Aldermen meeting for the City of Town and Country. It's Tuesday, May 26th, slightly after our start time of 7 p.m. And would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the Republic,
for which it stands, one
visible,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I hope all of you and your families had a wonderful and thoughtful Memorial Day holiday weekend. The meeting is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Alderman Benegus.
Here.
Alderman Butler.
Here.
Alderman Fauci.
Here.
Alderman Holman.
Here.
Alderman Hughes.
Here.
Alderman Mortland.
Here.
And Alderman Whitmire.
Here.
Mayor Dalton is presiding, and we do have a quorum via video conference.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your earlier participation in our work session and rejoining us in our regular meeting. The minutes from our meeting of May 11th have been distributed to and considered by all. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Alderman Holman moves approval, seconded by Alderman Mortland. Discussion. Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as written and distributed. The next item on our agenda is hearing from citizens. This is an opportunity from anyone in the community to, in this format, to indicate to our city clerk that they wish to address the board on a matter of interest or concern. And we have received no such indications. We have no public hearings on our agenda, and under the topic of appointments, which is our next agenda item, I have prepared this evening to seek your support for my appointment of Alderman Whitmire to serve for the completion of the term as chairman of the Conservation Commission, which his predecessor, Alderman Reuter, held, and Alderman Hughes to serve as the chair of the Community Art and Culture Commission, serving the position that her predecessor held, Alderman Mann. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Holman, seconded by Alderman Mortland. Any discussion? Seeing none, all of the opinion that motion should prevail, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any of the contrary opinion, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries unanimous. We are on the topic of communications and reports. I have, well, I'll open the floor. communications and reports. Alderman Fauci.
The Planning and Zoning Commission met on May 20th and will be sending a number of bills to the Board of Aldermen. One related to amendments to the PDD ordinance, one related to the keeping of backyard chickens, and then also a conditional use permit for a pool and a conditional use permit for a pergola. So we can look forward to seeing those public hearings soon.
Thank you. Further reports. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. We will have a Ways and Means Zoom meeting. It is scheduled for June 19th at 8 a.m. We will have another meeting, but just like to have everybody look forward to that.
Thank you. It's very important work, particularly at these times. Further reports. And I want to thank Alderman Whitmire and Alderman Hughes for filling those terms in those positions. Please contact the staff to make any arrangements to bring your commissions together and conduct any meetings you'd like. Don't feel obligated to, but I appreciate your service. And I will be in the ordinary course after the election and the appointment of the new alderpersons, be making new nominations for committee chairs. Please contact me with your interest in that regard. And I want to note Alderman Whitmire has already done so, which I greatly appreciate. It is not an easy job. I don't make everyone happy, but it is my desire to match the best interests of the city, the commissions, and the alderpersons that lead those commissions. And so please send to me your interests, even though it'll be late June before we can make those appointments. I have a couple of items to report, and as I mentioned during our work session, I will be publishing the 4th installment, and I say I will be, really Morgan does everything technologically oriented in the city, but I'll be authoring, I should say, a 4th weekly update as part of our e-newsletter that will be posted on the website. And I am working with staff to find a date and develop an agenda and ultimately a format for our annual retreat. That'll happen after the election of the new alderpersons. And I will just give you a view into my mind. I think we would all be best served and most productive if that retreat were held at a time when it is safe to be in the same room. And so in a return to a new normal form of doing business as compared to via Zoom. If we are in this format for an extended period, then we'll have to consider going forward in this format, but I hope that's not the case. Further updates on that will be forthcoming. Mr. Shelton, do you have a report, sir?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to update the board. Ms. Wrights and I met today to review. She's going to be updating both the revenues and expense estimates based on the impacts of the business closures with the COVID and the staff reductions in expense. Ms. Wrights will be distributing some updated estimates later this week to the mayor and the board.
Mr. Shelton, I heard your language and I want to just make sure we're clear. I think you transposed those two words. You said staff reduction and expenses, and you meant staff expense reductions. We are not considering any staff reductions.
That's clear. Thank you very much for that clarification.
I knew what you meant. I just want anybody that might be interested in the matter to appreciate our perspective as well, because that is not where we are. We are on the topic of unfinished business. Bill number, nope, I'm sorry. Oh, Alderman Venegas.
If I might, regarding the communication and the staff retreat, you had mentioned that was the date was set by ordinance. What's the ordinance date for that?
It is set by ordinance, but it has always been, we have the authority to schedule that at a time that is mutually beneficial and in our best interests. It is set for the first, by ordinance, set for the first Saturday in June. We will not even have our new alderpersons sworn into office by the first Saturday in June. And for many, many years, I don't recall it happening on that date. It's I think the ordinance reads that at that date or such other time as may be established by the city.
So then to free up our calendars, is it at this point, would you say June? We probably will not have it in June. So our June dates are open. That's reasonable.
Yes, that's very reasonable.
Thank you.
And that's not for any reason other than the fact that our elections on June 2nd. And as I stated, my strong desire would be to have that retreat in a format where we can all be in the same room together. Produce a better result, I'm confident.
Thank you.
So we are now on unfinished business. It's item number 1 on our agenda, Bill 20-23. It's sponsored by Alderman Holman, Hughes, Butler, and Allen. It was continued from our meeting of May 11th. Without objection, our city clerk, please read that bill for the second time.
Bill number 2023 is an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 210, Offenses of the Municipal Code of the City of Town and Country by the enactment of Section 210.1105 regarding open burning activities.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Alderman Fauci moves approvals.
Second,
Alderman
second,
Allen seconds the motion. The matters before the body. Alderman Whitmer.
Mayor, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion. First of all, while I believe it will place some of our town and country residents in immediate violation, these same citizens are already subject to a parallel St. Louis County ordinance where they are also in violation. So adopting this ordinance will allow our police to have full authority to address this matter. So I fully support it. That said, I have 2 amendments that I'd like to suggest. I'll start with the first. First, I would move to amend in the preamble, paragraph number 4, striking the word do and inserting the word may.
Let me catch up with you, sir.
Paragraph 4.
In the 4th recital. Okay. The amendment's self-evident. Does that motion gain a second?
Second.
second,
Alderman Holman seconds the motion. Discussion. Seeing none, all of the opinion that motion should prevail, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Any of the contrary opinion, nay. Amendments adopted unanimously. Further discussion, Alderman Whitmer.
I'd like to move to amend section 210-1105B to include the language of St. Louis County Code of Ordinances, section 612345.2.d regarding burning of yard waste.
How would you phrase that language, Alderman?
I would adopt the language as it is written in the St. Louis County ordinance as written in their ordinance, starting with letter D.
And would
Points 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
would you please explain the significance of that, of incorporating that language?
Sure. By not incorporating this language, we are making the laws of town and country more restrictive than the rest of St. Louis County. And I don't believe that aligns with the rural nature of town and country. Secondly, larger landowners in town and country should share the same rights as other St. Louis County landowners. Third, it is not clear to me that the town and country landowners could conduct such a burning under Missouri Department of Conservation Natural Resource conservation plans. Those are usually reserved for a different purpose. So the whole point is to provide the same opportunity for our large landowners that exists for other large landowners in the county.
Okay, does that motion gain a second?
Second.
Alderman Fauci seconds the motion. Discussion.
Mayor,
I'm sorry, who was seeking recognition?
I'm so sorry. If I could just get Alderman Whitmire to give that county ordinance reference again, starting with 615. Just so I have it for the motion.
Yep, 612.345.2.d.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it would, this is up to the board, and I'm going to seek council's opinion here in a second. So that's, you might want to cue your, or take yourself off mute, Steve. But it would help me to see that actual language so that I know, rather than a reference to a county ordinance, which I appreciate the explanation from Alderman Whitmire, seeing the actual words would help me review it anyway. I don't know how the board feels. Council, do you have an opinion on that language and what it would, how it would flow into our ordinances?
I don't have it in front of me. I've seen it. I discussed it with, I think with Alderman Whitmire. And it's merely adding, I think his point is that by not having it in here, then it becomes, under our ordinance anyway, an illegal burn. And what he's wanting is that that our burn ordinance, at least in that respect, mirror the county's burn ordinance. And Alderman Whitmire, I forget what was the point of that? I can't remember. It's open fire.
What is this ordinance about? It's about,
Yard,
yeah, it's burning yard waste.
yard.
So it allows them to burn leaves, needles, brush, tree trimmings, and other similar material. No garbage, no rubbish, no construction waste, et cetera, et cetera.
Is that on three acres or more, or is it? What's
Correct.
Okay, it's on 3 acres or more. So that was not that provision, Mayor, was not placed in this ordinance, which means it would, at least theoretically, that would be an illegal burn. If we mirrored it, obviously it would be illegal burn, and the county ordinance and the city ordinance would be identical. And my understanding of what he's saying is he wants our ordinance at least to afford the opportunities to our residents that other residents in the county are offering. Is it my understanding of what he's saying?
Yep, I appreciated the explanation. Without seeing the language, I'm a little uncomfortable, but I'm interested.
I've read it. It makes sense. The language makes sense.
Steve just clicked off.
Oops.
Alderman Benegas was seeking recognition.
Yeah, I was going to ask for the same explanation, Mayor, but it sounds to me like maybe continuing this until we can get a comparison between the languages would be helpful. My guess is I'm in support of it, but not being able to see the language makes it difficult. So I'd make a motion that we continue this till our next meeting.
A second.
Alderman Benegas moves to continuance. Alderman Allen seconds. Alderman Whitmire, for your perspective, I don't hear opposition. I hear just a desire to see the actual language that you are advancing as an amendment, and that seems reasonable to me. A discussion regarding the continuance motion. I'm seeing none. All the opinion we should continue this matter to the meeting of June 8th. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of the contrary opinion, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your participation on that and for your good work, Alderman Whitman. We are on item number 2. It's resolution R05 2020. It was continued from our meeting of May 11th. It's a resolution amending the fees for various permits and applications in the city of Town and Country. I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Alderman Allen moves approval, seconded by Alderman Holman. Matters before the body. Discussion, please. Seeing none. Alderman Allen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This was discussed, and this, I really appreciate the work that's gone into the chart because it really clarifies the need for us to update our fees and be reimbursed for the work that our staff really does put into these activities.
Terrific. Thank you. Appreciate the leadership you've shown on this and that of your commission. Further discussion. Alderman Hughes.
I made a couple notes to myself and you've answered some of the questions already. How long has it been since the permit fees were reviewed by Ways and Means? I mean, is this something that's done every 2 years, every 3 years, every 5 years? I don't know.
No, they were, it's a good question. They were reviewed by Ways and Means, Alderman Allen, about 4 or 5 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, I think in February.
February, okay. So 3 months ago. And they were presented by staff, and it was a very thorough presentation. I was there, led by Alderman Allen, and it would pass unanimously as a recommendation of the Ways and Means Commission. So it's a fairly recent review of those fees, and yet, having said that, they hadn't been reviewed for years prior. And this issue first arose during the budget considerations last summer, and the work began in the fall under Mr. Shelton's leadership, and then was finalized and brought to the Ways and Means Commission as we just discussed.
So perhaps it's something that should be reviewed every 2 years, 3 years, every year.
I don't know why not.
I think it sounds like a good idea.
Further debate?
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there do any cities do this on a sliding scale in terms of cost of project? I'm just curious because, for a PDD, it's $1,000, but depending on the size of, the project, that can be a lot more staff time, or conditional use permits. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering if, and not necessarily for tonight, I'm in favor of this, but just, do they ever base these things off of value of project or size of project in terms of how much staff time is used?
Mr.
Because
Shelton, do you have a response to the Alderman's question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. When it gets to the point of actual construction, that is based on a sliding scale, exactly
Okay.
as the Alderwoman states. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good question. Further discussion?
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I look at the permit application overview, I see plan development, conditional use, and rezoning, each requiring a public hearing. But when you get down to architectural review, there's no public hearing. Why? What makes the difference?
It doesn't come to the board.
It's
It only goes to the Architectural Review Board. It doesn't come to the Board of Aldermen.
If I could address, I think I know the answer to that, or at least part of the answer.
Council.
If there isn't a public hearing, obviously there's less cost to the city. So presumably it would be cheaper. And I don't remember the ration that when we started or set up the Architectural Review Board, I don't remember the rationale behind not having a public hearing, but there is obviously a hearing that the public can attend. It's just not a public hearing for the record where things are read into the record, and it's not as formal as that. So, but I think the answer to the question is it's less costly because we don't have the publication costs and other things.
Okay. I just was wondering how.
Yeah, it's a different question as to the issue of the cost, as council just responded. In the inquiry from the alderman, which was why, and I was involved in the establishment of the architectural review. It used to be matters coming before the board, and we felt that this was putting together a focused body that had noted expertise and the ability to really conduct more thorough examinations, and that it was pretty decidedly not coming before the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
Alderman Benigas has done a nice job in leading that commission, and it's served us well for many years.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted clarification on that.
Good question. Further discussion? Seeing none, all of the opinion the motion should prevail, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any to the contrary opinion, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. We are, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm catching up. We're on the topic of new business now. Item number 3 on our agenda, and it's resolution R06-2020. It's a resolution granting the city administrator or their designee the authority to suspend the application or enforcement of requirements as necessary to support the reopening of businesses within the city of Town and Country until the date of August 24, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to approve that resolution.
So moved.
Alderman Hall.
Second.
Alderman. We have received some very thoughtful comments by Alderman Whitmire, and I appreciated those in advance. I'll ask Mr. Shelton to give the board some context here in the value proposition that is behind this resolution.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And several surrounding municipalities have already adopted this type of legislation. We've had inquiries from a couple of businesses who would like to be able to open following all the regulations of the St. Louis County. Some of those may require temporary variances to either a conditional use or a sign permit that that business may currently have. So this would give us the authority upon notification of the Board of Aldermen that we would intend to waive on a temporary basis up until August 24th, certain regulations that may prohibit those. We would also use our temporary permit process, which circulates through the staff on a sign-off basis, and then notify the board.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your work on this. It's helping us to help those that want to help our community by reopening their businesses, and it's doing so in a thoughtful, staff-driven manner with notice to the board, of course. Further discussion. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate the sunset of August 24th, and within this, what we're doing, this waiving these regulations to start, I'm assuming then there'll be a specific process as we move closer to the 24th to either go back, hopefully we go back to where we were, or to extend that.
Mr. Shelton, do you want to speak to that?
Definitely, and the date of August 24th is actually a board meeting. So if we determined at that time we wish to no longer continue whatever potential variances there may be or lifting of restrictions, we could do that. Or if it's need be and to continue on, then that could be a decision of the board at that August 24th meeting.
Thank you.
Alderman Whitmire, were you seeking recognition?
Yes, first, Mayor, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion. Many of our businesses are struggling to survive, as we all know, and we need to do everything possible to help them weather what I find to be egregious orders under which they must now operate. That said, it is not without some trepidation that I support this motion, as it provides very broad powers to the city administrator the way it's written, very broad powers. But my experience with our city administrator is that he can be trusted with such power. That said, I had a question then again related to the timing. You know, the way it's written regarding termination on August 24th, it sounds like our act here would terminate on the 24th, but would the suspension actions that had been provided also expire on the 24th? Is that the way this is written?
That is our intent. That is the intent of the staff.
Do we want to ask Steve if that's his interpretation as well? Or do we need to make a modification of some kind?
Let's see here.
Mayor, if I could.
Thank you. Please.
Mr. Shelton, the other option too is we would probably be able to put an expiration date on that special event permit application we were going to use. So it would be noted on there, an expiration date of 8/24 with an asterisk, you know, if it was extended by the Board of Aldermen after that.
Well, here's the issue that I see that he's raising. If on August the 24th, their permit's good till August 24th, and then you're going to have a meeting, and now they've got to go and get a permit, there might be an interruption in their business. And so I think my interpretation of what he said is that his concern is that will there be an interruption in their business because when this expires, they won't have their sign regulation, and they'd have to go back to whether it's to the planning commission or the board of aldermen to get that, and there would be a gap there. And would they be required to cease operating business? My understanding from Mr. Shelton is that the way this is going to be enforced is no, they by August 24th or before, they're going to have an application in for whatever permit it is to extend it, is my
Council,
understanding.
I read it a little differently, I think, and I want your opinion on this. This confers authority on our city administrator and those that work with him, including our chief of police and others that would be collaborating on the decision-making and issuing a sign regulation for the functionality of certain businesses and so forth. The authority continues until the 24th. That doesn't necessarily mean that the permit that he has issued would expire at that time, would it?
No, and it
Wouldn't that
doesn't
cover the
say
gap?
how long. It does not say how long the permit. If you look in the whereas clause, it talks about, for instance, a temporary sign regulation. It doesn't say how long that's good for. I suppose, and I would think that if they issued the regulation, when they issue the permit will state those details, that it's good until a certain date, but that at some point in time, and maybe it's specified in the permit as to when they need to make an application for the full permit. That could be handled probably in the permit process.
That's how I see it. I'm not as worried about that. This is a conveying authority for him to authorize certain activity to reopen those businesses, and his authority terminates on the 24th pursuant to this resolution. As you say, council, the terms of that temporary relief would be governed by whatever document is issued, and that can be scripted by you along with Mr. Shelton. Alderman Whitmer.
So will this permit include an expiration date then? Can we just handle this administratively?
Yes.
Such that, Mr. Shelton can set them all to whatever date he wants, up to even beyond the 24th, the 31st or something, to give a little leg room, so that if we make a decision on the 24th to extend, these people can just keep rolling.
Yep, exactly.
I would envision the permit saying when it expired and also when they needed to make application for the permit.
Yep. So I think that's, you've summarized it properly, Alderman, that it would be handled administratively and in a way that it doesn't set the business owner up for the gap that we've just discussed. Alderman Allen was seeking recognition.
Thank you. I guess I didn't elaborate enough on my first comment, because obviously between now and then, we'll have more information from the county that could impact this. We'll have more information about our revenues and our businesses. So we're getting great updates from you, Mayor, and Mr. Shelton. So I'm assuming throughout this time, we'll be, as a board, getting more information on how things are moving forward. So having said that, wouldn't that some of that information help to clarify then as we move forward, be it another week after the 24th or moving on?
Yes, or even conceivably, Alderman Allen, shorter. So this resolution designates the authority to our professional staff to assist our businesses in
Yes, thank you.
Areas, and we're leaving it up to their administrative discretion, and it might be shorter, or as Alderman Whitmire points out, it may be there's a run out period set forth in the particular relief granted to the business. Further discussion. Alderman Butler.
Thank you. I definitely would agree with some of the comments that any of these temporary permits that are allowed should have a date where they are no longer valid, not just put out there. So just if you're wanting a board member opinion, definitely have that on there. Then I did have a question just reading through these, and I apologize if I'm the only one in the room that cannot see exactly what we're talking about here, but what do these look like in real life? So I understand that we're wanting our businesses to open up, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking we're going to give temporary suspension of regulations for outdoor dining. And I'm trying to think, the businesses that we have right now that allow outdoor dining already have their permits and are ready to go with outdoor dining. So are we giving outdoor dining to someone who doesn't even have an outdoor dining space just so that they can somehow get business opened up again? I would like to know how temporary sign regulations, these things are actually impacting in real life the businesses that we have here in Town and Country, and why we're having to negate these for a short period of time. Like, give me a real world experience here, because Katie's already has outdoor dining. If county says you can have it, they already have it from us. They already have their permit. Panera already has their so show me. I guess I just need to know, why am I doing this if I can't see how these things that we have in here are actually going to be impacting our businesses?
Well, I think the point of the resolution is to confer this upon our professional staff, and I know I'm not prepared to consider individual applications for certain parking requirements. I'm going to rely on Chief Cavens, and I'm not prepared to deal with every sign placement or outdoor dining issue that could come up. I'm going to rely on our professional staff. So this is a conveyance of limited authority to accomplish the objective of helping businesses get open in a safe and effective way. I appreciate your question regarding an example, and I'll ask Mr. Shelton or the chief or somebody, or Mr. Gregowitz or somebody, to talk about an example, but that's all it will be. That would be a hypothetical case of some set of facts and circumstances that they would consider, and that's all, because we can't set guidelines around this. The whole purpose in this resolution is to convey authority to our administrative staff. Mr. Shelton, can you help Alderman Butler with an example of what you have in mind here?
Definitely. Thank you very much, Mayor. So we have had inquiries from businesses who currently have outside seating, but their outside seating is limited. The county regulations limit their indoor seating. So this would allow them to add, as an example, some outside seating, because they don't need, maybe they're limited because of parking. There's not the demand for parking. This would allow, again, based on following other regulations, any liquor license, any types of public safety, again, after a staff review, potentially expanding some existing outdoor seating, as an example.
Thank you. Further discussion? It was a good one. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the interest and the thoughts. Alderman Whitmire.
One last thing.
Yep.
Given the broad powers that we are providing and the uncertainty around, the materiality of these requests and their breadth and so forth, I think it would make sense to specifically say how quickly the alderman should be informed of a waiver or a suspension. So as a result, I move that we amend the resolution to state aldermen must be notified within 24 hours of all suspensions and waivers, instead of saying aldermen must be notified of all permits approved.
I second, if that was a motion.
I'm sorry, I was looking down. I apologize. Who seconded the motion? Alderman Butler, thank you. Okay, so there's a notice requirement in here now, and the Alderman Whitmire has moved that notice be issued within 24 hours.
May I speak to the motion, Mayor?
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
So the whole point is, I trust Mr. Shelton to do this. What I'd like to know quickly is what's coming up and what are we approving, so that we're all learning, right, together, and that we don't get surprised. And that if a sign goes up in the parking lot by my house, I can explain to my neighbors, this is a temporary thing. It was approved last night. It's up already this morning. And it's just so that we have a strong awareness of what's going on. I have complete trust in Mr. Shelton's actions. I just would like to know.
I think that's, I appreciate your comments, your support of the staff, and your interest in gaining the information quickly. Mr. Shelton, is that administratively workable?
That's
The point's well taken.
No. Yep.
I'm sorry, was that a yes, sir?
Yes.
Very good. The motion been made and seconded to modify the resolution by requiring that notice be issued with the notice in the resolution be issued within 24 hours of the exercise of the authority granted therein. Further discussion, Alderman Moreland.
I would just say 24 hours. I mean, depending on when it happens in the day, if 2 days, I think is very reasonable, 48 hours. So if our city administrator has other matters that he doesn't have to stop to do, one single thing. So 48 hours seems reasonable to me.
I appreciate that was the reason, Alderman Moreland, for my inquiry of Mr. Shelton. The objective is well placed. It's to get that information out into the hands of the Board of Aldermen as quickly as possible, as long as it is doable. I don't want to set him up for failure, and I don't want to put a provision on him that has him delaying any action on his part because he can't meet a notice requirement. But if he says he can do it, I'm comfortable. And Mr. Shelton, the floor is back to you again.
Yes, Mayor, just to clarify, we're notifying the board. We're not asking for any consensus or feedback. It's a notification process.
Mhm. Okay.
Thank you. Good, very good discussion. Further inquiry? Seeing none, all the opinion that motion, oh, I'm sorry, we got an amendment and it's been seconded. Discussion regarding the amendment. Seeing none, all in favor of Alderman Whitmire's 24-hour notice requirement amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any to the contrary opinion, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Further discussion, Alderman Whitmire.
One last question. How will we inform businesses of this action?
Mr. Shelton.
So we have an extensive email listing of all the shopping center operators, as well as we will notify the Chamber of Commerce, who has a good distribution list.
Awesome.
Thank you. Good inquiry. Further discussion. Seeing none, all of the opinion resolution R06-2020 should be approved as amended. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of the contrary opinion, nay. The ayes have it. Motion's adopted unanimously. We're on item number 4. It's Bill 20-24. It's co-sponsored by Alderman Fauci, Holman, Hughes, and Mortland. Without objection, would our city clerk please read that bill for the first time?
Bill number 2024 is an ordinance authorizing a professional services agreement with Mueller and Neff for property appraisal services related to the Topping Road resurfacing and pedestrian improvements project, phase 1.
Thank you. Bill 20-24 will be continued to our meeting of Monday, June 8th, 2020 for a second reading and consideration. We're on item number 5. It's Bill 20-25, co-sponsored by Alderman Mortland, Fauci, and Butler. Without objection, our city clerk please read that bill for the first time.
Bill number 2025 is an ordinance authorizing a work order with HR Green for design services and permitting for the Mason Road multi-use trail project and amending the 2020 budget by increasing a Parks and Stormwater Fund expenditure account and appropriating funds to cover the increase.
Thank you. Bill 20-25 is continued to the meeting of Monday, June 8th for a second reading and consideration. We're on item number 6. It's our warrant list in the amount of $458,079.03. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Alderman Allen moves approval. Alderman Mortland seconds. Discussion regarding the warrant list. Alderman Butler.
Thank you. I once again have questions on the expenses for our town square. The we haven't been able to use it. There have been no events there. And yet for a closed down shut off month, we had $433.06 for electrical stuff. And that's more than if you add up all of our other stuff that's listed right there for our other municipal areas, streetlights, toppings, traffic signals at another park. So I would love to know where I think we just need to maybe deep dive into the cost of what's going on over there. We also later in the warrant list, we'll also see we're once again having the cleaning of the creek area. And that's listed on here, I think, for 3 different times, or at least 2 different separate instances. So I know when I approved some of the things for Town Square, we were not told of these costs and that they would be ongoing, or that we would have problems with our creek so much that it would need to be cleaned out every week, or that it would have an insane electrical costs when we're not running anything. We haven't been able to use bathrooms. We haven't had lights running, and I know because it's my neighbor's backyard. So if we could look into that and maybe call and find out, that would be great. Additionally, I'm wondering.
Hold on, Alderman. I apologize for interrupting you. You made this point at the last meeting as a good one, and that is the cost of the electrical expense. I mean, that's redundant. The electrical expenses at Town Square. Mr. Shelton, have you, or Ms. Wright, do you have any information that would help on that point? Because it does seem very high.
Yeah, so there are, Mayor and members of the board, there are expenses related to Town Square. We have additional security lighting there that was reviewed by the board. We have lighting that has remained on. The tunnel lights are an example. There's some landscape lighting. We do have electricity to run the Babbling Brook. So all of those costs do add up. There's some fans in each, the maintenance building and in the pavilion, that we still continue those operations so that there's air moving in there.
Okay. And I interrupted Alderman Butler. Please proceed with your inquiry.
Thanks. Perhaps we could look at not running the fans in an open air pavilion if we're not doing that at other open air areas. But okay, so moving forward, the legal services for the Brynwick CID of $544, I believe we had received an email previously from Pam Wright saying that that cost would be passed on to the actual applicants for that CID. Is this a portion of that they're going to be paying as well?
Another good inquiry. Ms. Wright, will you speak to that, please?
Yes, we pay that up front and then we'll bill the Brynwick CID.
Okay.
Good question. Further inquiry. Alderman Allen.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, Alderman Butler. And yes, and I mentioned this in our work session, the amount for the CID did come in less than what we approved last 2 or 3 weeks ago. So at the end, Mr. Johnson said people called and said, oh, we'll just go ahead and pay it. So that was one of those circumstances. There were moving parts, but everything, I believe, I mean, we went through this ad nauseum. Every cost to the city has been passed on to Brynwick. So, and I do appreciate the question about the legal services. I was planning to comment on that. So anyway, that's it.
Further inquiry. Seeing none, all the opinion the motion should prevail, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any of the contrary opinion, nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved.
Alderman Mortland moves adjournment. Alderman seconded by Alderman Allen. All the opinion that motion should prevail, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any of the contrary opinion, nay. The ayes have it. Once again, our thanks to Ms. Cupford and to the entire board for your participation in this format and for your cooperation in getting it set up and running effectively. We're adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.